Hello, we're here today with Eustacia Cutler and doing our readings with Eustacia Cutler. Today she's going to read Welcome to Limbo, and these readings are sponsored by the Temple Grandin Eustacia Cutler Autism Fund. Eustacia is the founder of this fund, and the readings are all from her wonderful stories that we just all enjoy hearing her do when she does presentations. Today she's going to do Welcome to Limbo, and she is going to talk about part of this, as she's going to tell you, is from raising Temple. But I want you just to know a little bit about Eustacia before you start. And as everyone knows, she's Temple Grandin's mother. She has a BA from Harvard in English. She's a band singer, so she's a performer. Julia Ormond, who played the part of Eustacia Cutler, says that we lost a great actress when Eustacia became a mother and didn't complete her acting career. So what you see when she's reading is all these skills coming forth, and it is just beautiful. She's the author of A Thorn in My Pocket, which describes her raising Temple in the conservative world of the 50s, and everyone should, if they haven't read that book, they better get it and read it. So I'm going to turn it over to Eustacia. Here is a picture of you with Temple when she was very young. And here's a picture of you with Temple now, showing that, yes, mother and daughter has much in common. And here's a picture of your book that I want them to read. So now we will get started with Welcome to Limbo, and I'll turn it over to you, Eustacia. Sorry to take so much of your time, but I wanted people to know all that about you.
Well, as Chris has said, the story came out of my struggle raising Temple, and I looked up limbo in the dictionary. Webster's definition fits the spot where we all get stuck. Limbo, the abode of souls barred from heaven through no fault of their own, a place of confinement, or a place or condition of neglect or oblivion. We've all been there. That abode where we struggle with the needs of our child, caused through no fault of our own or of our child's. A condition of social isolation, of neighborly neglect or oblivion. Trapped, hedged in by a guilt that defies explanation. We accept what the world tells us we're supposed to feel. You must love your child, the world says. And intermittently we do. But as my wise daughter-in-law said, it's easy to love people when they're lovable. Not so easy when they're not. The inconstancy throws us off, fills us with a raging shame. Only in private do parents ever ask me if I got angry. What do I do with these feelings, they ask. How do I take care of my child and hold myself together? These are old feelings, old questions. They turn up in Psalm 42. Why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou so disquieted within me? Long ago, I thought the psalm was about those on the autism spectrum. Now I know that the psalm is about us. And with it comes another question. How do I cope with the physical task of caring for my child and at the same time present myself to the world as the world says I'm supposed to be? The world says my child is a gift, a special gift that will transform me into a deeper, more meaningful person. But it's not happening. My child is driving me crazy. My child is isolating me from the world. So in order to join the world and have my neighbors think well of me, in place of love, I will substitute glory. I will glorify my child, praise every step forward. I will tell the world my child is special. And our children, trapped in autism self-absorption, assume the assigned role. In truth, we've given them no other choice. Out of our own need, we've created a role-playing partnership. Our children are special, we are noble. And neighbors, out of their need for approval, accept the partnership. They too find our children a handful. They too have feelings they don't want to say out loud. Thus, with mutual need, we construct limbo. We're all of us excused. We're all of us there through no fault of our own. The setup feels safe, but it's not. Limbo is a static condition, a place where nothing grows. It only repeats. Growth, real growth, takes courage, honesty, hard work, and insight. The setup reminds me of an old dog racing story, back in the days when we used to race whippets. The oval track and the starting gate were the same as those of a horse race, only instead of a jockey with a whip, there was a mechanical rabbit set to scamper ahead of the dogs, always just out of reach. In this race, the bell rang, the gates opened, and the dogs sprang out after the mechanical rabbit. All except for one dog. He stopped. He looked at the track. He saw that it circled around. He ran around the track the other way, met the rabbit, and chewed it up. He didn't win. Racetracks are about betting, not intelligence. But in my heart, he was the winner. We don't have to chase the mechanical rabbit just because the other dogs do. Somewhere in that whippet reaction, and it's not the racetrack we thought was laid out for us to run. We may not win the worldly bet, but we will escape from limbo. In the escape, we will find our child and ourselves.
So that was a great reading. And I have a couple of things I think we should talk about from that reading. The first thing that always strikes me is our children are driving us crazy. And I guess we have to look at, did Temple ever drive you crazy?
Absolutely. Because they don't connect, and she didn't connect. She connects now, she learned. But after all, Temple will turn 70 this year, so she's had a lot of years in which to learn how to connect. I think one of the troubling things about autism is our children have a disconnection, and it works two ways. It isn't just that they don't understand us. We don't understand them. It's a double conflict. And it makes us feel, I think what we all go through at some point is that we feel we're no good as parents. And then we think, well, maybe we're no good as people. Because the kind of connection we usually make with other people is missing.
So some parents probably don't want to admit that their children drive them crazy. They feel like that's something they shouldn't say.
Yes,
and you've had people tell you not to say that part of your
yes,
story.
I had them ask me to remove that line from the story. I said, no, that's the story.
And it's very true, and it's okay for parents to feel that way. I think
I understand why they do that. They love their children, and what it is a confusion between total love, unconditional love, and unconditional acceptance. Because you love your child, yes, unconditionally, but that doesn't mean you're going to accept every condition of what they're doing. And even animals correct their young. We correct our other children. It's part of raising children.
Right.
And we feel somehow that it's unloving to correct those on the autism spectrum. And I think not. I think Temple did learn at a very young age that she was expected to behave the way everybody else in the household was behaving. She caught on to that. And I think the only way you can get children to understand understand that certain actions are expected of them. The only way you can do that is to be consistent. So that you can't switch the game on them. They you got to teach them a straight game. Even if reality switches, try to keep the games, keep the family system systematic, consistent.
Okay. That's interesting. So what you were doing is you were saying the same message to Temple all the time, and
Yes,
parents need to give their child the same message.
same message.
And so the end of this story where you talk about the dog race, were you saying that you went the wrong way and chewed up the rabbit? Was that something about you? Is that, and
No,
that you don't win the race, but at least you get the outcome's good and you're done?
I think you just don't have to follow what all the other dogs are doing. I think you have to
Okay.
trust your own judgment in certain
Okay.
situations. And Chris, you work a lot with families and you work in the school, and you've told me about times, tell us one, where the teachers said, well, that's not what the old rules say. Well, but you're saying the old rules don't apply. Can you go into that?
Well, I think there are a lot of times when the discipline program for a child has to be altered based on their needs. And I think you really have to sort out what the needs of the child are. And that's where I think parents get carried away with, oh, my child has all these needs, so everybody has to accommodate for them, instead of saying, no, we really need to meet those needs, but then have the same expectations once those needs are met. But there's always the cell phone, which is a new thing. And a lot of schools say no cell phones are allowed in school. But for a child with a disability, sometimes you want to throw that rule out, because calling his mom can solve the problem. Mom, and mom says, knock it off, get back to work. And it's the same thing that, when the child used to come home in trouble for what they did at school, now we're doing it a little faster, and he might not be getting in trouble when he calls his mom, but he goes to that cell phone. It gives him a break from the class. He calls his mom, you put it on speaker, everybody hears what's going on, and then he calms down and can get back to. Mom knows it's happened, so she can go back to it when he comes home at night. He knows that everybody knows, and it's not really any more disruptive than him getting very upset and throwing things around the room. So I like to use the cell phones when it's needed. I don't think the child needs to be calling the mother every 10 minutes, but if it's going to calm a kid down, you have to always take that into consideration. If the problem is his anxiety is out of control, let's do everything we can to calm him down. Let's break the rules of the school, or just not have them. And a lot of times we just say, no, we're going to run the other way. We're going to be like the dog in the track. We're just going to say, no, let's just turn around and run the other way this time, and see if we can solve it.
What the expected thing to do. The dogs are expected to run the track.
That's true.
And sometimes this one dog just saw another way to do it.
And I'm sure it was highly entertaining for everyone watching.
Very entertaining and very practical. He wanted to catch the rabbit.
Yes.
And he did.
And I think that, so that's some of the things that we see with children. But on the other hand, I do see classrooms where they've made so many accommodations for a child, and that they're not putting any limits. The child can't just get up and wander whenever they want to, because that is distracting for everybody else in the classroom. But more importantly, the child's not learning that they're part of the group. And if you have a child with autism, it's really important that we start teaching them as much as we possibly can that you're part of this group. And the best way to learn that you're part of this group is to do what the group does, and not always have your own isolated.
Temple was, when Temple was 2, and Dr. Carruthers said he thought she should have speech lessons. She went to Mrs. Reynolds' little school, and there were other children there who also had trouble speaking. And one of the things Temple had to learn, and it probably was just about as important as learning how to talk, uh, she had to learn to sit in her little chair, her little desk, whatever the arrangement was, and wait her turn while other children, and she could watch the other children if she wanted, she could look at a book, but she had to be part of the group. And that's a very important lesson you've just mentioned. How to handle yourself in relation to other people. And it's one of the reasons I've always liked a lesson that Elaine Hall had done out there in Vista Del Mar in California, in Los Angeles. She sat her children, and they were quite severely autistic, these children. But she made them all sit in a circle and hold hands with each other. She said, "Now we'll all raise our hands," said she, raising her hands. Now you can't do that unless everybody does it.
Right.
Both and you could see that some children had I watched they had trouble understanding that they had to be part of that group, and then they would slowly catch on. It was the same lesson you're talking about.
And the children could teach each other, like, you have to lift your hand or I can't lift my hand, so you have to
That
do it.
that's right.
And
You have
and
to.
so it's not coming from the teacher all the time, it's
No,
coming
it's
from
not.
the other children in a natural, functional way. And you've talked about Temple playing games with the children and understanding that if you want to play with the kids, you have to follow the same rules. And she did want to play with the
And she
children.
did. She wanted to play with them. And she has spoken of the fact that there were so many games that they all played. It wasn't just outdoor games, there were all the board games with dice and little tokens that you moved around from square to square. Um, and you had to play it with somebody. And
Right.
she said what troubles her about the computer now is you play those games alone. It
Yes.
doesn't connect you.
So I think everything we can do to connect people, and I'm not sure how much that story you just read talks about that, but it does talk about mothers understanding that part of
Yeah.
connecting
Well,
and being
understanding the difference
honest.
between unconditional love and unconditional acceptance.
Right, and being honest about it,
And
honest with themselves about what you can handle as a parent, and is it okay to expect things from your child, which
yeah,
I believe you feel that it is. Okay.
yeah, I think it is. And it's also okay to find there are times when you've had more than you can handle. And
Yes.
don't beat up. Parents shouldn't beat up on themselves. It's
I
not an
think
easy task.
now you had a life very separate from raising Temple, which is also very important to mention in this limbo that you live in with your child. Or, but you had your acting, your singing, your stage work, your college, your at Harvard. So you did not see yourself just as Temple's mother. That's not who you were. You were
No,
Temple's
and
mother,
as you
and
did, that's the meaning of the title of the book, The Thorn in the Pocket. It came from when I went back there to Harvard, and Theodore Morrison took me into his creative writing course, and I was a lot older by that time because I was interrupted um, by childbirth for continuing college when I was younger. And I told Mr. Morrison I was very anxious about it. And Morrison was a close friend of the poet Robert Frost. And Robert Frost said he had gone late in life to lecturing, and he liked it. He wanted to teach children and students, but it made him anxious. And he said, I always keep something in my pocket I can touch when I'm talking, so I will remember who I am. And then he added, lately it's been a thorn. So the title of that book is about that, keeping that something in your pocket. And you spoke of Julia Ormond and playing me in the movie. Julia told me that every scene she played in that movie, she kept a thorn in her pocket. So she would be true to the character she was playing.
so, but I think it's really important for parents to understand that yes, you are your child's parent, but you were somebody before your child was born, and you need to continue being someone after. your child is
And
born.
ultimately, I believe it makes you a better parent.
Yes, because you're bringing something into the world
You,
too. It's not just your child is not responsible for bringing all the everything into the world that you're living in. Now, I want to ask one more thing. You use the quote from a Bible. You're very well read. You use a lot of other authors when you talk about autism, and your book that you're writing is also following other literature. But the Bible, you said that you thought it was something to do with the autism spectrum, and then said, "Wait a minute, that psalm is about us."
yes.
And uh, I think the Bible is written for us, for everyone, including people on the autism spectrum. But that was an interesting way to look at it, to not to always apply it to autism, but to realize that a lot of things we're applying to autism are just things that we need to apply to everyone, including us, and not make this huge change of how we're doing things. So could you talk a little bit about that psalm and why you picked that
Well,
psalm? And
oh, I wish I had it open in front of me right now because it's a beautiful psalm. Uh, and I came upon it when I was very young, and I just liked that line about, uh, "Why art thou cast down, O my soul? Why art thou so disquieted within me?" Because I think we have all been through those times when we felt uneasy inside, uh, anxious. It's really about anxiety.
so to face that in yourself and say, why am I so disquieted? What
Yeah,
and a lot of times it's other people are putting that on you. Even when you have a
yeah,
child with autism, it's like, okay, you need to do this and you need to do this and you need to do floor time and you need to do ABA and you need to have them in school, and you need to do all speech therapy and OT, all these things. So you become very disquieted instead of someone just saying, well, as a parent, what do you think you should be doing for your child?
and I think the risk is, uh, it makes parents, if they feel that only the professional knows how to guide their child, uh, it makes parents passive. They don't trust their own judgment. And I think you have to. I think there are no answers, there are only choices. I've said that a lot of times.
Many times,
And
yes, that's
and you get better at choices. And they won't all work. And if they don't work, you change them. And you get better as you get older and a little wiser about life. Uh, but that's valuable to hang on to in yourself. You don't always have to follow the word of the professional. You
because
may, you may,
sometimes it
you will
makes you feel
listen.
very disquieted, or if
Yes,
that's
it
a word.
just makes you anxious. It just
Yeah.
produces anxiety, and you can listen to it. You can say, "I'll think about that," and then think about it for a while, and then maybe the next day you'll see, "Oh, I see a better way to go. I have another idea."
And I think when I work with parents, I always say, well, what do you want to do? Because I had one mom call and say, my child's wearing the same pair of shorts every single day, and I can't get her to change them. And I said, well, does she wear them to bed? And she said, no. I said, well, you can wash them at night, because you wouldn't want your child wearing a filthy pair of shorts. I get that. But I said, well, have the neighbors complained that she's wearing the same pair of shorts? And she said, well, no. I said, I have children about wearing the same pair of shorts. No. Then why do you care that she's wearing the same pair of shorts? And she said, well, I just think that that's not a good way to parent, and she should learn to wear other pair of shorts. And I said, I just wouldn't worry about it unless you really have a thing about that, and it's not bothering anyone, it's not bothering your child. So, and they fit, so let her wear the same shorts, just wash them at night. And she said she was so relieved to hear that she could make a choice that worked for the family and didn't work for some parenting rule that we have. Your children need to wear different clothes every day. I don't know why that came up as a rule, but we do. We wouldn't want to do that. So that's another one of your stories of, parents becoming disquieted for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the story about the shorts. That's a great one.
It's just kind of
And,
one of those
it's, and
things where you just want to go, that's your biggest problem? Yeah.
yeah, it's a very,
So,
it's a very minor problem.
yes. But I know in Temple Good Old have to change her clothing because she wanted to wear little girl's clothing when she was a teenager, and you
Oh,
did
that was
face
a
it then.
problem.
Yeah.
Yep, I did have to. And finally, by that time, she was nearly as tall as I am. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and realized that she looked silly in her childish shorts. She wanted to hang on to her little girl shorts, and she wasn't a little girl any longer. And she saw herself in the
So
mirror.
So what you do as a parent changes for your child, not according to someone else or some
That's
book you're reading. You really have to put your
some
own
expert.
spin on it. Yeah, it doesn't have to be. You are the expert in a lot of ways, and certainly using the advice. But when it comes down to the final choice, as you talk about, you make that choice as a parent. Yeah, let's close this for now, and I think we'll be doing another story, and we'll probably plan on doing at least one a week and sending them out to everybody on Eustatia's blog, and I'll put it up on Facebook so that everyone can read these and enjoy them. So thank you so much for doing this. It's going to be a great series of stories for people to listen to.
Thank you for all the wise things you've had to say. And
Okay.
yes, let's do it again.